Hello everyone, it's Micah. Hopefully this will be the version of the video that makes it onto YouTube. I'm having some difficulty recording this. This is my first weekly wrap-up video where I go over the music happenings of the week. This week I'll be discussing our Hot 100 number one, a holiday classic, our new number one album on the US album charts, and a couple of pieces of drama from Nicki Minaj and Justin Timberlake. First up, our Hot 100 number one hit for the second straight week during the holiday season is Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree by Brenda. The big news this year is that, oh my gosh, Mariah's not number one anymore. And Brenda's team released a music video and did an all-out promotional push this year, and it was successful in taking the song to the top of the charts. Very impressive. I reacted to the video this week. The fact that a 65-year-old song hit number one completely undermined my intent, which was to review current hits on the chart. And yes, it is the current number one single, but it is not really an example of contemporary music. Nonetheless, my methodology is my methodology, so I reacted to the video even though I'm completely familiar with the song. Wasn't familiar with the video because it just came out, and you can check out my channel and find the video and see where I reacted to it this week. It's the one that I released this week that has the fewest views, which is a little surprising to me. So you can bump that up a little bit. That would be much appreciated. So congratulations to Brenda, and hopefully, well, I don't know. I don't really have a clear wish for, whether this stays on top or whether Mariah can share and push ahead to number one at the end of the holiday season. But it's interesting to see that there's a jockeying for position this year. It makes it a little more interesting than just having Mariah on top every year. And I'm a huge Mariah fan, so yeah. But I still like to see a little bit of see it mixed up every now and again, and I'm glad for that. On the album chart, speaking of mixing it up, we have a K-pop group called, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Ateez. And I have no clue what that stands for. I'm sure if you're a K-pop fan or just someone who's a little more in the know than I am, please drop down in the comments. I haven't seen anywhere in the brief research I did what that exactly stands for, or if it's an acronym, or if it's some sort of a slang abbreviation, or if it's just something in Korean. Their slightly unwieldy titled number one album is The World EP.Fin Will. And I don't know if you pronounce the dot in that or not. I see that this is I think the third album in a series of EPs that are all diligently labeled as if they're file names on a computer. And this is very emblematic of how I see K-pop. It's very manufactured. It's very precise. It's all encompassing. They throw every single musical element that they can possibly think of to throw in, and like everything is very meticulously done. And I listened to the first single from this album, and it does not disappoint. It's a very and I know I've said very like 85 times, but I think if there's one word to describe K-pop, it would just be very. You don't even really need to have an adjective with it. They could just call it very music because it's so very everything. And for me, I appreciate that they've studied Western music, that they've studied American music, that they've studied black music apparently so closely that they can precisely emulate all of the different styles. Just in the one song that I listened to, I isolated clear influences from Chris Brown, from Future, from dance hall, from Drake, and understood that each of those artists that I mentioned also have their influences and aren't necessarily just coming up with ideas out of the blue either. But I'm definitely getting this I what I picture is that in these grueling rehearsals that I know these K-pop groups undergo, that they have people teaching them based on rigorous reviews of music videos and production and performances by American artists. And at this point, K-pop has enough of a legacy that they're probably studying and taking notes from each other, but the influence is clear here. And it was surprising to me that they hit the top of the album charts this week, but apparently there were multiple versions of this album available for sale, which is a trick that Taylor Swift has been using recently as well. And so almost all of the sales that contributed to them going to number one were physical album sales. And so they're not at the top of the streaming charts by any stretch of the imagination in the US, like around the world, and especially in their native South Korea and in some of the surrounding countries. They are absolutely bonkers. The success they have is absolutely staggering. I think they're one of the 3 or 4 top K-pop groups in the world. They're not so big here, but they do have enough fans who are willing to buy multiple versions of this album that it pushed it to number one on the charts. So regardless, the chart rules are the chart rules, and if the chart rules add up to a number one album for Ateez, we're not going to take that away from them. Congratulations, guys, all 8 of you in the group. Speaking of rules, we're going to have a bit of a controversy come Monday when final numbers are released for this week's Billboard 200. Nicki Minaj released Pink Friday 2, long-awaited follow-up to her original Pink Friday album, which was her first big splash on the music scene over a decade ago. But over the past couple of days, there has been some drama. Nicki has taken to X, formerly known as Twitter, and released a series of rants about how Billboard is conspiring because she didn't sign a 360 deal for her creative output, as I understand it. And they are finding ways to penalize her, to punish her for that by nitpicking about how she got to her album sales numbers. Now, from what I understand, Nicki had a contest where where the entrance requirement for the contest among her fans was that they had to show proof of purchase of 4 copies of her album. And Billboard is seeking to exclude albums bought by fans under the pretense of entering this contest. And now I may have some of the details wrong on this. Nicki didn't make a direct reference, but there are apparently several complex rules around exactly how you can promote your album. And if you do something that's that obviously incentivizing fans for buying your album, and especially buying multiple copies of what is essentially the same album, it's basically creating duplicate sales. Now, if you release legitimate additional copies of the album and a fan decides to buy different copies of the album unprompted based on different artwork or something of that nature, apparently that's fine. But if you incentivize through a contest where they can win something of value, then it's not so fine. I don't have a clear position on this in general. She may have a point about how they're about double standards, but she, in my opinion, she can't have thought that this would not be flagged at some point as possibly a way of juicing the numbers. And in general, Nicki Minaj tends to complain a lot, in my observation. And that's the reason I chose this screenshot from just a generic Google search I did on Nicki. Her most recent tweet, or X-tweet, or whatever they're called nowadays, is entirely decipherable, and that might be partially an age thing, but there are a series of capital letters that encompass 4 lines, and there's several exclamation marks and question marks. It's, if someone can decode what this tweet where she says, "I really effing blacked with this album, y'all," like bunch of question marks, WTF, I know what that means, but then there's like 18 F's in at the end of WTF, and then it just looks like one of those. Then it's just a series of letters, and I don't know if that's supposed to be one of those things where one of those online jokes where they give you the first letter of each word and you figure out what the entire sentence is supposed to be. Maybe these are in, I don't know. There's got to be some sort of code to this, or I don't know if her cat ran across her keyboard. I'm not really sure what's going on. But to me, this is not a cogent argument for anything, and I tend to look sideways at people who are that dramatic about things. And honestly, if I were releasing an album and I were looking to justify its artistic merit or its commercial potential, I probably wouldn't fixate on chart rules about how copies were counted, of whether of how sold copies or streams were counted. It really makes it seem like you're all about your numbers and you're really not about your art. And that's been my beef with Nicki over the past several years. She seems to be more into the trappings of what she does rather than the substance of what she does. I like Nicki. I think she's incredibly talented. I wish she had used her talent in more productive ways. I don't, and that's, I know there's a lot that could be said there, and there's a lot that other people would say that that I'm not going to go into, but for my taste, I just feel like Nicki has gotten slightly distracted from making music or making really high quality music over the past decade, and this is unfortunately in line with that. But let me know what you think in the comments. Our other piece of drama this week is a performance Justin Timberlake gave in Las Vegas a couple of nights ago, where he decided he was going to perform Cry Me a River. Well, you think, well, no big deal. It's one of his biggest hits, and he would perform it in a show, right? Well, it just so happens that he has not been doing a lot of live performances recently, and this ended up being the first time that he was performing the song since his ex Britney Spears released her tell-all memoir, where she had some unkind and frank depictions of their relationship. Cry Me a River infamously was clearly about Britney Spears, or even if it wasn't clearly about her, once the music video came out with a Britney lookalike in the starring role, it pointed to her. And so Justin did a weird Nirvana interpolation mashup as part of the song to kind of halfway excuse it, I think. We're all just stupid and contagious. Basically, since I guess he's referencing the absurdity of like the pop music machine, which is a little bit of what the Nirvana song was about. So it's almost like he's saying this stuff isn't real anyway, so don't, it's kind of complicated. I don't really know what he was going for, but he did say before he performed the song, "No disrespect." And I get it. It's a hit. Take it for what it's worth as a song, independent of its of how it was deployed at the time as a personal shot at Britney. For my part, I think if I were him, I would just have not performed the song. At least wait until a little more of the furor dies down before performing it again. Or even better, change up the lyrics so that maybe turn the lyrics around so that it's from her perspective. It would be pretty easy to do, and it would be a way of being clever, and it would be a way of admitting that maybe you had the wrong perspective on it in the first place. But to me, Justin could have been a little more nimble about how he approached that, and he did not. So yeah, I ended up getting into a little more into the gospel stuff. I try not. I want to try not to do that so much, but that is what people are talking about this week, and those are my takes on those topics. Let me know what you think about this weekly wrap up. Stay tuned on my channel for more reaction videos, and this is the part of the video where I'm going to end the formal weekly wrap up, and I'm going to take a moment to get real with anyone who cares to listen about what this first week was like. So, as you can probably tell, I'm not a professional at this. It was painful for me this week to watch these videos of myself reacting to these other videos and to edit them down a little bit and to take note of my mannerisms, take note of the fact that I wasn't looking at the camera, which I've been trying very hard to do this video, that my lighting angles were horrifically bad at times, and I still have work to do there. Just nitpicking, and it's my first week, and I comforted myself knowing that I wouldn't get a lot of views the first week, and I could always just take them down before fingers crossed I go viral someday. But it was rough this week, and I'm learning as I go. If you come across one of my videos from this past week, and I would encourage you, even though they're very rough, I would encourage you to support, listen. Hopefully I have something interesting to say about the songs that I reacted to, and I definitely solicit comments, although I was not soliciting them inside the videos. People usually engage a lot in the videos when they have reaction videos. Y'all tell me, is what people usually do in reaction videos. Go down in the comments and tell me what you think. But I was very much like, acting like I was an expert this week, and I'm going to try to modulate my tone going forward so that I'm appear a little more receptive, because I actually am very receptive to the feedback you have, and I don't even come close to knowing everything about the music that I'm talking about, but I will share what I do understand about it, and hopefully can start a dialogue. That's what the whole make music better, if you see that in my logo, that's what that's all about. I want to create a dialogue where we approach music from the standpoint of what it really does represent, which is a reflection of where we are culturally and who we are as people, and not taking music down, not criticizing music for what it is and where it is, because it really does just reflect where we are and who we are. And a lot of people will say, well, this generation is trash, so the music is trash, but I like to keep in mind that people have been saying that ever since the 1950s, and probably before that. I imagine back in the 1920s when jazz was first burst into popularity, it was the same thing. Jazz was considered uncouth. I mean, the very name jazz was practically profane if you look up the origin of the word. And then it all repeated itself in the 50s with rock music, and then it repeated again in the 80s with rap music, and over music comes up. Older people don't understand it, or they just don't tune into that frequency, and so what they don't understand they put down. And I see so much of that today as well, and that's really what I'm trying to do here, is bridging that gap. So in addition to it bringing traffic to my channel and telling YouTube that, hey, people are paying attention to this content, it's also personally gratifying for me to get that engagement. So please leave comments. Let me know what you think. Be respectful, of course, but let me know what you think. Let me know how I'm doing, but don't get too far into it because I know I have a lot to learn. At any rate, I've rambled enough, and hopefully I gave enough of a warning that if you had wanted to tune out by now, you could. So anyway, thank you for joining me for part of my first week from the relaunch of the channel, and I want to send a reminder out to make music better. See you all soon.